Thank you so much for joining us. So you can see we have a different panel of ladies this time. Woohoo! We're going to try and always have something fresh and new for you. So this week, we're talking about roaring 20s. Woohoo! We got through the teen years. We made it through. Unscathed, maybe. But now we're talking about roaring 20s. So super excited to get started, and let's just go for it. So our first topic, our question that we want to talk about is basically, what was one memory that sticks out for you? Like something, it doesn't have to be huge, but what's a memory that you remember that you would, a memory that you remember, that you treasure.
So I think for me, one of the biggest things in my early 20s, I became a mom. I turned 21 before I gave birth to my son, and so that was interesting because I'm like thinking I'm missing out on something, but then at the same time not. So being a young mom in my 20s, I think one of the biggest, it's kind of like overarching for my 20s, is realizing the beauty of being a young mom and growing up with your child. But I always remember it. It's funny because my husband's only a year older than I am, so it's not like when he was that much older. He was like always reminding me, you are the adult. You are the adult in this relationship. And at the same time, I think having a child and being kind of still young and being able to just explore and have fun and I think grow up with your child. It was a really interesting gift because I know a lot of people say, having kids young is really hard, and it's not easy, but at the same time for us, for me and for my, husband and I, it was a good time.
Awesome.
We only had the one, so.
Awesome. Yeah.
For me, it was getting to be the little sister. So my nephew will even tell you that of my older brothers, he thinks I'm the oldest because I'm the boss. And so, which is true. Like, I'm usually the one taking care of everything, even with my older siblings or the adults of me. So there was an event, a Rock Fest event that I went with my older brothers and some other close friends that I had grown up with. And it was the one event in my 20s where I feel like I truly was the little sister, not the one in charge or the boss or, so that's probably one of my fondest memories from my 20s.
I love that. Yeah.
Not having to.
Right. Because you had to grow up
That's
fast.
great.
Yeah.
I love it.
For me, it's hard to get to one memory of the 20s because, that's a decade. That's a long time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of the college years. And so the memory of independence, where you move out of your parents' home and you really get to make your own decisions. And
Adulting.
Yeah.
now called adulting.
Yeah.
And then it was independence within a safety, because I lived on a dorm. I didn't have to cook all my own food. I ate at the cafeteria, or I could not, can make those decisions. And my college did have a curfew. And so there were some rules and things. It's like a Christian college. So they were trying to be one step, before total freedom. But for me, it felt like lots of independence. I could, make my own choices and do that. And really, I think that's the time I really came into myself. So I left my teens. My senior year was really good for kind of working through a lot of issues. It was a hard time, but worked through a lot of issues. And then in my 20s and moving out and being my own person, and I still had insecurities, which I still have today, my insecurities about things that we've talked about before, but also I liked myself and I liked who I was and I liked the choices I was making. And it was a good time. Good decade.
Yeah, I actually feel like, similar with Amanda, we had 2 kiddos by the time we were 20. So we were young parents, but I think something that really sticks out to me in my 20s was that I finally started to get things together. You know, all the stuff through teenage years and the struggles and all of that finally came to this culmination where we were like, oh, well, we're parents. We're actually adults. You know, like this is not just a baby doll or, you know, it's like a person that we've got to care for, and we've got to figure out these roles, like what roles do we want to play within our marriage, all of that. And then as a family, I remember having a conversation with my husband about putting on his big boy pants and having a conversation with his family, and then me too. I got to pull up my big girl panties, and we got to start talking with our family about like what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do. Holidays was actually a big one because everybody wanted us to come to their place. So then we're going all these different places, and one day my kids are tired. They're exhausted. They're screaming. We're tired. Like we have this tiny little car, and everybody wants to buy big things. So we're like, okay, we're going to have to make triple trips. And finally, just saying, you know what? We're done. We'll be here on this day. If you want to see us, come here. And it was such a start of us. Like we'd already been rebellious and having kids, keeping kids, all that stuff. And now it was, okay, we're going to be rebellious in the fact that, you know what, we're not going to do what everybody wants us to do. The expectations, that's enough. What's important is our family, our little family. And that's what we're going to do. And then if everybody wants to, you know, join us, this is our boundary. We're
Setting boundaries and prioritizing.
Yeah,
for
because we were
yourself.
the only one with kids. We're like, you guys are like 2 adults. You can come see us. We don't have to bring the whole everything but the kitchen sink.
Right.
You guys can come to us. So that was actually a huge thing, and I think we actually set the stage for other family members to, you know, who had kids later to like have your boundaries. And even when others will complain about it, I'm the one that'll step in and say, well, that's what they need for their family. So, yes, it was big.
I think it's funny without even Dom Renee going so far. I'm like, I got to be a kid for a day. And everybody else is like, we realized we were adults. I don't know why I was picking up on that. I'm like, oh, funny.
Right.
Well, that's good though. Like I think that, but like you know, talking about teens, that was really hard. You
Yeah.
had to be adult.
Right.
So then when you don't have to be, it's like, oh, I'm expected to screw up in my 20s, right? I guess like.
And for us, that's what's happening to us in our 40s. So,
Right.
yeah, I love it.
Well, for me, same kind of thing. But I didn't have a partner at the time, so I had just single parent and just creating memories with my daughter. Whether just going places. Didn't have much money, but you know, we might go to McDonald's, but we'd go to McDonald's all the way out in Hillsboro. We lived down Gresham, you know, we took the bus all the way down, you know, just creating different things. Creating those memories and traveling. And it's interesting enough now that my oldest is grown up, she's doing those traveling things with her and her friend, and so it's good to kind of see that. You know, I may not have had it myself, but at least I've been able to pass that on to her. So yeah,
I love that. Yeah. And I think, everything we've said leads so perfectly right into, I'm almost like, did we already answer this question? We might
There's
have.
more.
There's more. There's plenty, like you said, there's 10 years, right? So the next question that we have on our list is basically what was the biggest lesson learned in your 20s? And gosh, 20s are such a foundational time, so I feel like I'm excited to hear.
I've got 2.
Perfect.
Two.
I love
One's
it.
a little silly. But the first one is, one thing I like to say in my 20s was like, let's have no regrets. So, you know, I'm thinking, as this young person, live life to the fullest, make great decisions, no regrets. Whatever that meant to me, I don't know. And then I remember the first time I couldn't go to I made a decision not to go to my grandma's funeral. It was a trip, and I just thought, okay, I had work, I had this, I couldn't go, and I regretted that. I made the wrong decision. I did. I should have gone. You know, who cares about work? I should have taken off work and gone. You know, and so I'm like, oh man, you know. Now I didn't want to have any regrets, and it just made me realize to have no regrets, you have to make the exact perfect decision every time. That's not going to happen. That is something, and so no regrets was not a good goal. And so that was like a big, so it's like you are going to
It
have
sounds
regrets.
like a good goal.
Yeah.
Right.
I know it sounded great, but actually, I can't live a perfect life. I can't make the right decision every time. I'm going to wish I did something different. I'm going to wish someone else did something different. Whatever. But I just so that's not exactly my goal in life. So that was like a big thing because I was like, no regrets, live life to the fullest.
It makes me think of that as a Snickers commercial where the guys get
No
tattooed.
regrets.
No regrets. It's like, no regrets. It's tattooed on them. It's like, I regret this tattoo.
Or you regret it.
Exactly.
Right. So
Strike that
was like a
brand
big
name
thing.
there.
Yeah. And then you said you had a second. Was that, yeah.
I realized in my 20s that it was now up to me to make my own birthday magic. So as a kid, it's kind of mom.
Ooh, that's
Mom
good.
makes the birthday cake, and what do you want? And there's a birthday party for you. And in my 20s, who's gonna throw the birthday party? Me. So I just hey, I'm gonna make my own birthday magic and invite other people to come and have this fun day with me.
Yeah.
But it was now, one of the things in my 20s I learned, and I still do it today. Make your own birthday magic.
That's so good. I'm gonna go right off of that because that was one of the big things we learned too. I would say too, I went through a lot of friend stuff in my 20s, and then the second was because I'm a gift love language, learning through that because I had so many hurts through gifts. And me and Alex coming to that realization of Christmas actually was a big one where we were still kind of expecting our parents to give us that gift, that big gift, and then when it didn't happen, realizing, wait a minute, we need to give each other the good gifts. And we, regardless of what we do for everybody else, again, we had a lot of learning around everybody else, but we can be that for each other, knowing what we love. And that puts, besides the fact that our, parents now have grandkids and other things, now we get to be that for each other, and it takes the pressure off of them. And we know each other better than anybody else anyway, so we know what we want. But then a lot of friend stuff, because you go from high school where you're kind of spoon-fed your friends, right? And then everybody's changing. We had kids, so we were in a completely different area than any of our friends. Yeah, and so just having to learn that it's okay to let people go. People come in for a season, sometimes they go. Sometimes people in those different life styles, it's fine, you can love them from afar, but the truth is, it's we couldn't go out and just go out. We had to get a babysitter, we had to, do all the different things, and so it was just easier, more cost effective. I mean, we were also broke, because so broke.
Yeah.
Most people are broke.
So broke.
Sure.
Exactly. I mean,
Normally.
right, and
Kids
two
now.
kids, and so it was just more cost effective. So learning to graciously, but also, I mean, it hurt a lot. So
Yeah.
People that you thought were going to be around forever, or friends forever, as you would say as teenagers, it's not really happening. Yeah. And BFF, that was another thing we learned too with that, is use the word best friend carefully, because you don't, there's a lot to that. That's a whole other thing. So friendships, relationships.
Yes,
we
that's a
talk
good
about.
one.
I know. Video, yes. So,
Friendships.
yes.
Relationship.
Yes.
I'm gonna jump on what you said as well, because it's funny. Yeah, I've kind of too. Because one, definitely, I think, like you said, you realize that you're in either just a different life phase, but part of us too, where we were just in a different mentality. Even though, we would take our child with us pretty much everywhere. If we went someplace, we were taking him with us, and we were in a really interesting situation too, because we were very blessed that my in-laws, they were living in Denver, and we were here in Portland, and we were kind of semi-starving to death because we were I was at a point, I had a young child, I couldn't work at the time, and at least go back to my job. And so my husband was trying to finish school, and so they said, well, come live with us for a couple years, get done with school, and then kind of figure out, what you want to do. And then, so in that early part of the 20s, we actually tried a lot to get out of the house. It was kind of weird because you're like, they weren't parenting us, but at the same time, you can't help but when you're cohabitating with parents that they parent you.
Right.
And so we made a lot of excuses. And so most of our friends, and we realized the value of friendships, the age goes away. Like when you're in your 20s and in kind of older, then age starts to go away. So you can have friends that are, in their 50s, 60s, 40s. And so most of our friends were people that were like at least 15 years older than us, which was odd, but most of it's partially because they had either littles or, still kids. And so you're kind of in that like almost mentoring type friendship.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a shift and a really big lesson to me that, there's not once you get to a certain age, there's not a limit on who you can be friends with.
Right.
So even now, it's really helped me have a different relationship with my son because now he's 25 and now it's not, yes, I always tell him, I'm like, I put my mom hat on and tell him this is great. But then I cannot have my mom hat on and be a friend or to my daughter-in-law, so there's those moments that you can have friendships within that dynamic. And then the other thing, really big lesson for us was financially, we made some really bad decisions early, like, because we got married at 18, 19. So between 18 and like 21, that's partially why we were having some financial struggles, made some really bad decisions. And just realizing for us, it was okay, do material things matter? And that shift. I mean, that's part of, I think, my faith too is, material doesn't matter. It's, things in this world are just gonna break or whatever. People are gonna steal it. So that shift for me in my 20s, which is odd because I think most people, they don't have their 20s. But that was a shift about mid-20s of like, yeah, I don't really care as much that we have all this stuff. And it only gets us into trouble when we're always trying to have all this stuff. So it was still a bumpy road into the 30s, But we were able, because of that, when my in-laws moved, we bought their house and we stayed in Denver. We wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. We would have been very rent poor. So that was a huge lesson for us, and for me too.
Well, kind of on that is, for me, family isn't always family. So,
Amen, sister.
Yeah, I had a lot of struggles with my personal family, but then, along with the friends, kind of, you find who your family is. You create your family, who you are, and then growing up with a child too, you have to kind of be a little bit more mindful of who you choose that you think are your friends. And there's a lot of adulting decisions like, oh, okay, you might be cool to be around when you're not, but you know what, now I'm a parent and for me, and then, I mean, what you do and who you are around impacts that. Yeah. And even so now, as we get past the 20s, and I see that. And I still do the family isn't always family even now. It's more as I've gotten older,
But it's a hard pill to swallow when you're trained, and you get this mentality of like, oh, this perfect family, and you want all this family, and then it's like, no one has a perfect family.
Oh, no. It's another episode on that one.
Family isn't family. Coming to you soon. That one we may have to be careful who we share it with.
No.
I know. There's some.
Sorry, Mom.
Can you go like this for a few minutes?
Yeah.
Right.
along all of those similar things, Patty Lynn talking about the funeral decision and, family not being family and grief was a big, how to manage grief. Grief from actual death, particularly people my age. That was really tough for me because you think, who dies? Your grandparents die. At some point, when you're at an appropriate age, your parents will die. But you don't think that your brother is going to die, or that your cousin that's younger than you is going to die, or that your age.
Right.
So that would grief, learning how to manage through grief, and then also grief with family is not always family. So relationships, this is what I think this relationship should be, but I have to accept, I have to grieve what I want it to be and let it go, and accept that it's gonna be what it's gonna be. So I think that was, in different stages in my 20s, going through those, but grief in general, whether it be from actual death or just ending of relationships.
Yeah, I think that's good because I think we can also see like an overlying almost topic of like grief for many different things. Really, I remember learning grief for an idea that I had and not recognizing it until like way later because I was like, what the heck is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get through this? And then realizing, oh, I'm grieving that this thing that I put so much like of my heart, my effort, my time into didn't work. And so then having to like let that go was like, oh.
Well, and who
Yeah.
teaches you? It is a good topic because who teaches you how to manage grief?
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't go to counseling or, don't pay good attention to counseling, there's so much to talk about in counseling.
Oh yeah, so much.
And then so many different things where you may not even realize I'm grieving this.
Right. Right.
So.
And I think along with like your 20s, you learn like, oh, you only live once, but that can turn into like that toxic, everything's got to be perfect, but then you also have to grieve. Yeah, no regrets.
Yeah.
Right.
Ooh,
No.
but then I regret everything.
Right.
No, you can't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that.
Well, I love that because again, this is so good. I love how each topic goes into each topic so well because our next topic really is what would your today self tell your 20 self if you could go back and tell yourself something. Whew. That's a good one.
I'll tell you, mine would be that it is not my job to make sure everybody else is okay. It's my job to make sure
I'm still learning that one.
I'm okay. Yeah, well, I am still working on that as well. I might not know to say it, but yes, knowing and doing are two different things. But I think that would be the biggest thing, because I felt very responsible when I was younger to make sure everybody was okay. And not that I didn't take care of myself, but I poured more into others than I probably should have. And I don't know if should have is the right verbiage, but I definitely didn't pour as much into myself. I gave a lot up that I didn't necessarily need to. And it was a choice. I mean, I actively chose to do it. But I think if I could go back and tell myself, it would be probably not the best choice. It's a regret.
Yes. I
In
think
some respects.
I'll go off of yours because it's similar, but it's also different. Mine was very much, I would talk about identity because so much of my identity was wrapped up, and partially because life happened so fast to us. We had a kid, we were married, all of a sudden, like all this stuff. I didn't really feel comfortable in my identity, so I'm a wife. That was my identity. Then, I'm a mom. That's my identity. I'm a stay-at-home mom. That's my identity. And quite frankly, I was terrible at all three.
I know.
And that's partially because, it was. I was a really bad mom at first, and a lot of it is because I put so much into it. Like everything had to be perfect. I was going to prove everybody wrong. I had to major chip on my shoulder about like my marriage is going to be perfect, my kids are going to be perfect, my stay-at-home momness is going to be perfect.
Pinterest ready. When
Yeah.
it wasn't even
No
Pinterest.
pictures. Yeah, I didn't have any of that. I was DIY before DIY was a thing, but because of that, I lost so much of me. I lost who is Mariah, and that's fine. It became something I did in my 30s where I rediscovered myself. But I feel like if I had known a little bit more about that piece, that identity piece, I would have probably pursued some things sooner, and then been able to like, I don't know, maybe actually have a career path at this point. I don't have any regrets on it. I don't, but I wish I could go back and tell myself a little bit about that. So.
I think there's a lot of similar themes. So with you guys having your kids in your 20s, and then Mariah saying your kind of figured thing, your who you are piece in your 30s, and I did the kind of who you are piece in your 20s, had my kids in my 30s, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's but the same, different paths
Yeah.
through the same journey, not same journey, I wouldn't say, but
Similar, yeah.
similar human experiences.
Yeah.
Right? Things that we need to come to, just maybe at different times and different ways.
Absolutely.
Good to talk about.
Yeah.
We can hear the other person and identify, yet we have our own story.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
But then you're not alone.
You're not alone, right?
Yeah. We've all been through similar-ish things.
Okay. I was just gonna say love yourself more and go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we as for me it was more like I hesitated because I did the whole kid thing, you know, you like, well, if I do this then I'm being selfish or you know, or I'm not taking care of what I'm supposed to do. It wasn't so much that I felt that way, but it was what I thought other people thought of me of doing that. Well, she's already the single mom. She's the this, she's the that kind of thing. But just love yourself and go for it. And yeah, don't worry about what other people think.
Oh, yes.
Because
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I look back now and I was like, you know, I could have done so many other things, but you know, everyone has their own journey, and I guess I wouldn't take it back. It just I might have made other decisions, but you know.
Well, the journey's real. You're in it.
Oh yeah, no, I did.
We gotta live through the journey.
Right? No, yeah. It's been a rough journey, but you know what? I made it through.
And we're amazing. Whether we learn something in our 20s versus 30s, or kids in the 30s
Right.
versus 20s,
Absolutely.
or you know,
Yeah.
we're amazing for who we are, and so
And always.
it happened for a reason.
Absolutely.
But hindsight, as we're talking about, is 2020.
It really is.
Right.
Well, absolutely. Because I mean, for me, I think what I would tell myself is to, you know, you don't have to please everyone. There's really only a certain amount of people that really should matter in your life, and even then, if that's not a great relationship, you know, you don't have to please them. And that's something that I think prior it was started in my teens, but it just carried over and it set like almost like muscle memory habits that reactionary to when someone says, oh, you know, basically asking to raise your hand to do something or filling a gap or whatever it is, and realizing that I don't have to say yes. I don't have to say yes.
Yes.
And I've actually, this last year into this year, because I'm trying to deprogram this now, because I set that so hardcore to the point that my husband's at times had said, hey, I'm really worried. You clear your plate just to put more on your plate. And it's like, so I had really prayed to have my plate cleared, and I'm struggling not to fill that plate. But my mantra right now is, no one is going to die if it doesn't get done right now. No one, because I am not in a profession. I am not don't have responsibilities. Do I not want to fail on something I've said yes to? Absolutely. I want to, live up to what I've said, okay, but then it's making me really cautious now. What do I say yes to? Because I don't want to fail those things, but you get yourself to that muscle memory like reaction of like, oh, I've got to do it all, and then I'm up till whatever awful time in the morning trying to please other people. Why? And if I was to die today, what would it be? Like, no one would probably, I mean, they would care, but it wouldn't have progressed me any further in other ways that make sense in where I really want to make a difference in my life and my relationships and all that. So I think that's the big thing is I would have just said, you don't have to please everyone.
Yeah. And I love you said that. I know. I was like, no is a big thing to learn in your 20s. No.
Or 30s.
Or
whenever. Or keep practicing it. It's something to practice.
20s, 30s.
No is
say
a practice
no.
instead of
No.
yes. We could have a no conference instead of a yes conference.
That's right.
No man, no.
I mean, like
no,
the reverse
ma'am.
of what's that movie, The Yes Man?
Yeah.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Reverse, yeah. No,
No,
woman,
ma'am.
no.
I think we're onto something with that. That might actually, because I know people think it's negative, but it's like it's actually
not.
really positive
Yes.
to say, to be able to say no.
Yeah.
That's it. Please don't tell me no when I call.
So
Please be
no
honest.
lets you
Yeah.
say yes
Yeah.
though, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
right. Yes. Oh, so good. Okay, so I've heard several topics just out of this one. We're going to go back because I think we got a few shows. I love it, but I love these conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, make sure you comment. We're going to be checking Facebook and the YouTube videos, so please comment. Subscribe. That's a new verbiage I gotta get used to. Subscribe.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell.
Yeah, and we will check questions, so please make sure to leave any questions or thoughts. We want to hear your story as well, so please make sure that you're doing that. And until next time, we'll see you next month. Bye.